After prioritising Unai Emery as the next manager and him declining, Newcastle turned to Eddie Howe as the man to take the job. So what will he bring to Newcastle United? Is he the right manager? And how could the team look under his management? Well, as they went for Unai Emery, they would have been appointing a manager to play possession football who wouldn't press a lot when out of possession, but with Eddie Howe, this may be a little different where the team will be pressing more off the ball. In Bournemouth's final Premier League season, they were the team to attempt the third most pressures. With that being said though, the concern with Eddie Howe is the amount of goals that were conceded season upon season, and this is what eventually led to their relegation in the 19-20 season. And coming into a team who have conceded 23 goals already this season, with the defence looking shaky, it doesn't fill you with confidence that this will improve. However, what will improve is the optimism, the style of football and work rate of the players. This is what Eddie Howe will bring on the pitch. There was a reason why Bournemouth were able to defeat the odds and rise from League 2 into the Premier League with Eddie Howe and then spend 5 seasons at that level. This was down to the commitment from the players, the mentality to attack and really go at the opposition. Similar to when Sheffield United came up in their first season, people paid attention because the football was entertaining. They got relegated in their second season, but Bournemouth stayed for many more. A big reason for this was due to some of the players in the team like Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser and Matt Ritchie. These 3 players are at Newcastle United now. Instantly, Eddie Howe will be able to come into the team and have players understand him, which is crucial. Wilson has done well at Newcastle already, but Ryan Fraser not so much, and this may be a turning point for Fraser and possibly what he needs. The 2018-19 season was a standout for both players, with Callum Wilson scoring 14 and assisting 10 and Fraser scoring 7 and assisting 14. But this is something for Eddie Howe to utilise straight away with his formation that they played in, his experience of the players, and that's an advantage that he had over other managerial candidates. Plus, I'm sure this was a great talking point in his interview, which as reported by The Athletic was said to be better than Emery's and impressed the board with his details and plans. But for the board to hear there's a player at the club who's not being used, who's scored and assisted many at this level under Eddie Howe's management, that's massive, and he can come in straight away and utilise him. These players performed well in Eddie Howe's 4-2-2, and this is how I think the team will set up with him in charge. Looking back at that Bournemouth team, Fraser was on the left wing and Wilson was the left-sided striker. For now, with Newcastle, I've gone with Joel Linton as the other striker, but Howe does have some options here. For example, Alan St-Maximin, who is on the right wing here, could be the striker with someone else on the right like Jacob Murphy, but I just feel like Alan St-Maximin's qualities are much better as a winger where he can get the ball deeper and drive at the defence. In this formation, the wingers position narrower, they come into the half spaces and are playing like attacking midfielders almost, finding spaces around the opposition defence. And you're then creating those overloads out wide with the fullbacks who are pushing up, and this is where you'll see the link-ups of Fraser dropping into spaces where he receives the ball and then passes to Callum Wilson. And with those crosses into the box, this is why Joel Linton could be a favoured option with his height. Alongside Callum Wilson, he gives Eddie Howe a similar option to what he had with Josh King at Bournemouth, but maybe they need a new signing in that position, and that is what we'll come to later on. Then in midfield, with Longstaff and Willock, you have Newcastle's 2 best tacklers this season. Willock, who has 3.8 tackles won per 90, and Longstaff also averaging 3.8. This is much needed in this system to have 2 defensively solid players in the midfield because players around them are fairly attacking. We've seen with Joe Willock though that he's so much more than a defensive midfielder, so you'll want to get the best out of him. Well, Eddie Howe has said that he's flexible with his setups depending on the opposition and will set the team up differently. And this was clear at Bournemouth as the 4-2-2 was his main formation, but many other formations were used during his time. So for example, a 3-4-3 might be the formation to keep what you have in the 4-2-2, but to have an extra man at the back and remove one of the strikers. All you're really doing here is removing the striker and everything is the same really. This formation would look to improve that defence, which is much needed for Newcastle. The reason why it's similar is because you have your 2 wingers who will both come narrower, the fullbacks are still going to push up and be attacking. You've instead got 1 striker, but what you can do instead is allow Joe Willock, who we just mentioned, to be very attacking. He can arrive late in the box and be around the box looking to score goals, which he did brilliantly at the end of last season. And he'd be able to do this with confidence confidence too. With the extra man in the defence, this formation is simply taking a striker and replacing that for another centre-back. But at the same time, it allows Joe Willock to almost act as a second striker at times. And then out of possession, instead of two strikers pressing and pushing up high, you're falling back a little more to make it compact at the back. The truth is, a range of formations will be used by Eddie Howe when he comes in, but maybe these two will be the most effective. In his interview with the board, he's reportedly discussed players that he'd like to sign in January. So in these setups, where does the improvement need to be prioritised in January? Well, in that 4-2-2, I was reluctant to putting Joe Linton in the starting lineup, but right now, if you want to keep St. Maximin as a winger, which I think is the most effective, but still have two strikers, then Joe Linton has to be one of them. So I'd look for another striker to go in the two-striker system, someone like Youssef En-Nesyri at Sevilla. It's debatable whether he'd be available in January, but Newcastle have money to persuade him to join now. In Eddie Howe's system, alongside Callum Wilson, En-Nesyri would offer height and aerial ability, which Josh King did at Bournemouth. And that different dynamic of striker is needed alongside Callum Wilson. A player in that style would be effective. A centre-back is needed, especially if the back three system will be played, to have an extra man in that position. The likes of James Tarkowski at Burnley, Boubacar Kamara, who Marseille will want to sell as his contract expires in the summer, plus Nathan Ake at Manchester City might be available on loan, and if so, then that'll be another player that Eddie Howe has experience with from Bournemouth. I think it might be quite likely that this was one of the players mentioned in his interview. So of course, there are doubts over Eddie Howe's ability to come into a team deep in a relegation battle right now and get them out of it due to what happened at Bournemouth. But in my opinion, Eddie Howe has always been the man that I thought was right for Newcastle long term. So why not appoint him now and get working on what he wants and get the players that he needs in January? It makes sense. Please click the like button if you did enjoy, and let me know your thoughts on Eddie Howe as the Newcastle manager. For more insight and analysis, subscribe to Route 1.